Amongst boxing fans, few names draw as much infamy as Charlie Zelenoff. Having gone by the names Z-Money, the Russian Bride, and the Cyborg, Mr. Zelenoff has a reputation online as an aggressive and often unprincipled troll inside and outside the ring. This is because of his tendency to pick fights with strangers and skilled athletes alike, almost always backing out after taking a few blows. Videos of Mr. Zelenoff rake in hundreds of thousands of views, though most seem to mock him for his relative cowardice. With so much discourse surrounding Mr. Zelenoff, it can be quite difficult to separate truth from fiction. So what's Charlie Zelenoff's background, and why has he been a topic of fascination for over a decade now? Charles Peter Zelenoff was born on July 27, 1988, and grew up in Los Angeles. There's really not much about his youth available, other than that he loved boxing from an early age. It's this passion which he says inspired him to take up the sport around the age of 16, and many videos online show that his stepfather Eugene supported this direction. His hostile and unpredictable personality, though, would soon overshadow any skills he may have picked up. Charlie Zelenoff was already gaining a name for himself on internet boxing forums by 2006. In one of his many erratic posts, he said he was an accomplished street fighter. Mr. Zelenoff went by the usernames Baller27 and ViciousBoxer77, quickly becoming known for exaggeration and attacking other members. A user by the name of Bazooka supposedly called him out as they live close to one another. Charlie issued a hot-headed response on YouTube.
Hey Bazooka, from Eastside Boxing, whatever, that's your screen name, right? Bazooka, whatever? Alright, listen you why the are you calling my gym and talking about me? What the you got nothing better to do?
As far back as 2007, Mr. Zelenoff was challenging much more experienced fighters of all disciplines. One time he challenged Chuck Liddell when he saw him at the mall with his family.
You know, that guy said something, but you know, actually he asked for a picture at the end. I mean, he never even really challenged me. I seen video of him, it's funny. I mean, when he's trying to do stuff, I mean, I wouldn't want to hurt the poor kid. You know?
This became one of Mr. Zelenoff's trademark behaviors, repeating it with Peter Manfredo Jr. Most of the time, Mr. Zelenoff would challenge gullible amateurs to light sparring, then fight hard and dirty. He was also known to take the padding out of his gloves. To build his reputation, he created a YouTube channel where he began uploading his homemade videos of matches, along with his own commentary and responses to other videos. Though at first his mostly younger audience found him to be a hilarious troll, it was soon clear that Mr. Zelenoff was completely serious. Some jokingly referred to him as the next Kimbo Slice, one of the first boxers to build his career through the internet. His machismo caught the attention of boxing fans across the internet, but in an overwhelmingly negative way. Mr. Zelenoff, of course, did not take kindly to criticism, usually responding with angry, vulgar rants filled with homophobic language. Training throughout his teenage years and early adulthood, Mr. Zelenoff made his official debut in 2008, at the age of 19. His first and only professional fight was recorded by BoxRec.com as a disqualification against him for repeatedly spitting out his gum shield mid-match. Mr. Zelenoff nevertheless claims to have beaten his opponent, Andrew Kid Thunder Hartley. Kid Thunder was what's called a tomato can fighter, a term describing perennial losers in boxing. Supposedly, Mr. Zelenoff received a 45-day suspension from the Arkansas State Athletic Commission. His detractors reveled in his disqualification. Charlie denied it was a fair ruling, proclaiming himself to be the victor. But when a video of the fight appeared online, it gave Mr. Zelenoff more exposure than ever before, and it immediately went to his head. Mr. Zelenoff continued seeking out amateur boxers who he figured could be easily beaten. What's more is that he'd sometimes claim his opponent was a martial arts master or ex-Marine. He'd post these videos online while boasting that he was the greatest of all time. Nevertheless, many of these videos demonstrate his lack of both skill and stamina. Mr. Zelenoff offered Kid Thunder Hartley a rematch in Los Angeles, only to back out at the last minute and demand the fight be held in the streets. When Mr. Hartley refused, Mr. Zelenoff sucker punched him.
I'm not fighting.
Rumor is that Mr. Zelenoff tried bribing Kid Thunder to take a dive. Charlie's stepfather tried apologizing after the incident, claiming his son had mental problems.
His mom has psychological problems and he does. That's why I stick my neck always for him. Eventually get killed, but it's okay.
Charlie was also becoming known for trash-talking opponents of all skill levels, right up to professional boxers. Most of the time they ignored him, but this habit quickly turned Mr. Zelenoff into a pariah. He was still active on boxing forums in 2010, often self-promoting to mixed reception. When a moderator reminded him not to insult fellow members, his response was, quote, "If you guys are cool with me and respect me and root for me in my MMA career, then I'll be respectful back." After being told he'd have to be respectful either way, he replied, quote, "If someone disrespects me, I won't be nice to them. I won't threaten them, I'll try to ignore it." Like usual, he was quickly baited by more antagonizing posters. Some sarcastically cheered him on, whereas others insulted him. Mr. Zelenoff was undaunted, bragging about the wild nights he had at strip clubs and what encounters he had there. More understanding members chided those who egged him on, arguing that his obnoxiousness was usually reactionary. Still, in 2010, Charlie was banned from the MMA forum like everywhere else after making death threats. It seemed this was enough to dishearten him from MMA, as he went back to strictly boxing soon after. His training vlogs didn't stop, nor did his penchant for picking random fights when he could. And soon, he would manage to finally bite off more than he could chew. Mr. Zelenoff established the Underground Boxing Federation because he believed official leagues were corrupt and rigged against him. His delusions led to billing himself the greatest of all time, with anywhere from a 160-0 record to a 346-0 record. Later that year, Mr. Zelenoff made a trip to Johnny Taco's ringside gym in Los Angeles for some training. He was supposedly approached by an older boxer, who commented that although he had power, he needed to refine his technique. Unsurprisingly, Mr. Zelenoff didn't take kindly to this unsolicited advice. But his latest target was nothing short of a bad decision. Mr. Zelenoff was talking smack to none other than Floyd Mayweather Sr., who decided to go a few rounds with him to teach him some respect. Though Mr. Mayweather was more than double his age, Charlie wore out fast, trying to escape the barrage of punches in the ring. After it seemed to be over, he took a cheap shot on Mr. Mayweather, igniting the fury of other gym-goers. Even as he slithered away, Charlie continued to declare himself the victor, and repeated that he was the greatest of all time. It didn't take long for the encounter to be posted online, with almost all viewers slamming Charlie for fighting dirty. The Mayweather crew afforded themselves a chuckle at the absurdity of the situation.
Wait a minute. Wait. Man, I beat the shit out of that guy. Man, I knocked that guy out, man.
On April 7th, 2012, Mr. Zelenoff was charged with bank robbery, for which he spent 70 days in LA County Jail. Bail was set at $30,000. A clandestine video taken at his trial revealed another important piece of information. Charlie Zelenoff was ordered by the judge to remain on a prescribed medication. To many, this was undeniable proof that Mr. Zelenoff was in fact mentally ill. A user of the BoxRec forum says he was processed at the same time as Charlie, and recounted an incident in the holding cell where even some Blood gang members were confused by his obnoxiousness. His time in the slammer didn't teach him anything though, as he went right back to his usual antics on release. He also took to calling himself a cyborg. At the same time, he spent most of the past year while not picking fights trying to win the affections of Kim Kardashian.
Hey Kim, look how fast I am. Best boxer ever, Charlie Zelenoff.
He constantly posted on her social media accounts, with one comment going as follows, quote, Just an offer, beautiful. Next time you go there, ask for my number and call me yourself. They know my number. Or have them call me and I can just meet you there. I live 5 minutes away. Don't even take any money with you. I'll pay for you and I'll tip the restaurant after. I'm supposed to fight on PPV this summer in Germany. K2 Promotions, $1 Million Fight. I can take you out on a date to that restaurant, 414 Nate and Al's restaurant, Rodeo Drive. Then you'll know me in real life. You'll see for yourself that I'm a good guy, and then if you want, I can buy you a ticket and hook your security up with tickets for my TV fight. Mr. Zelenoff also circulated an online petition to get her attention, but of course this was not successful. This strange behavior manifested with other celebrities. Mr. Zelenoff was accused of stalking Nicki Minaj in 2013 when he was filmed waiting for her at a Ferrari dealership.
Nicki! Come here right now!
Many commentators speculated he was on something, or having a psychotic episode. One provided a previously forgotten account of Mr. Zelenoff's history. At some point, him and his mother were supposedly in a car crash and received a hefty settlement, allowing him to purchase some basic filming equipment. Also revealed was that an online group was apparently harassing the Zelenoff family and encouraging Charlie in some of his more delusional rants. Charlie vented his frustrations by challenging most everyone to a fight. And yet again, he eventually drew the attention of a professional who was finally fed up. Around 2014, Mr. Zelenoff began harassing Deontay Wilder on social media, whose career was still in its infancy. Mr. Zelenoff would leave vulgar voicemails in which he purportedly hurled racist slurs and other insults. He denies this. But what crossed the line was Mr. Zelenoff telling Mr. Wilder he would duct tape his young daughter's mouth shut while Zelenoff murdered him. Mr. Wilder took matters into his own hands and challenged Mr. Zelenoff at a Los Angeles gym. Mr. Zelenoff was made to sign a waiver that he couldn't sue for damages as a result of injury. He remained confident he could win. Mr. Wilder proceeded to utterly thrash him. Afterwards, it came out that Mr. Wilder mistakenly wore 2 right-hand boxing gloves, something he believes may have saved the rogue boxer from further harm. He came to believe Mr. Zelenoff was a target to be pitied for how he constantly picks fights he can't win. Though he hoped Mr. Zelenoff would stop harassing boxers, he declined a rematch in the interest of Zelenoff's safety. As usual, Charlie still saw himself as the victor, bragging on his podcast about how great he was. His enemies usually countered with sharing and inflating his most humiliating defeats. One such video from 2016 is often mistakenly posted as Charlie being beaten by a 16-year-old, though his opponent Dejan Daniels would have been 21 at the time. Mr. Zelenoff married a woman named Daria in 2015, though the relationship didn't work out and they soon divorced. Some online commenters didn't believe it was a real marriage. In 2016, Mr. Zelenoff was arrested again for starting a fight in an LA Fitness. He later complained that the race of the witnesses was why he was booked. In September, Mr. Zelenoff posted a video of him challenging a man he said was a soldier, apparently filmed in the Ukraine. In 2018, he was confronted outside his home by a man calling himself Crazy Tempo. Mr. Zelenoff was chased into an Astro Burger by Crazy Tempo and tried hiding in the back. Online, he tried goading a boxer named Katie Taylor into fighting him, while also reiterating his claims of defeating Deontay Wilder. By 2019, Mr. Zelenoff's obsessions had shifted back over to Kim Kardashian, the focus of his newest video rants. His mental state seemed to be more in decline than ever before, and he would often film himself while intoxicated. More videos of Charlie attacking random people in West Hollywood came online too that year. In one instance, he sucker punched a homeless man. In another, he harasses a group of young people who clearly do not want to fight him.
Undefeated.
Okay.
320 and 0.
Okay.
You a fighter? You want to fight? Who wants to fight? One-on-one.
Not really in the mood for that.
Nobody wants to fight. You
Kind of just
gone.
hanging out.
Hanging out?
Yeah, dude. Chilling, bro.
I'll you up.
Okay, I probably bet you will. You went undefeated.
You can go.
I can go?
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah, I'm not attracted to you.
Slurring his words as he walks away, he attempts justifying his behavior by saying they provoked him.
Gwen, these people are evil, man.
He was arrested a third time for assaulting a Domino's pizza delivery driver and released on $5,000 bail. One version of the story is that online trolls got Mr. Zelenoff's address. To tease him, they continuously ordered pizzas to his house during one of his live streams. Charlie has kept a mostly low profile in 2020, likely since his online platforms keep getting banned. It's difficult to tell which active Facebook accounts actually belong to him, both because of imitators and his tendency to create alt profiles. When his name comes up in conversation, it's mostly met with mild amusement at his earlier antics, and grim disapproval of what he does nowadays. Charlie Zelenoff is one of those early internet eccentrics that people didn't seem to know how to respond to. This is mostly because so many people wrote him off as an elaborate troll initially. The truth is much more complicated. It's clear that Charlie Zelenoff suffers from a mental illness, but the debate over how much agency he has over his violence is still ongoing. We must also consider the others in Charlie's life, like his stepfather, those claiming to be on the Z train, and the various professionals who fought him knowing his history. Some might argue that each have played a substantial role in perpetuating this destructive lifestyle. Whatever the case, this anomaly is a reminder to always reflect on how we treat and interact with those who may never be fully understood.